All right, Cardinals baseball now. Oh, look, last night, you kind of knew this was going to happen. Shane Bieber is an absolute stud. I mean, this is a guy who can strike out 13 dudes in a game easy. And he had a nice outing, 6 innings, allowed 1 run, 5 strikeouts. Carlos Martinez gets hit around, 4 innings, 5 earned runs, 7 Ks, but he now has a 6.21 ERA. So I'm not trying to focus on last night because Shane Bieber is a stud. But still, you lost 10-1. You had 6 singles. I know Junior Fernandez later in the game gets hit around. That's a very lopsided final score. But also, it's the last week or so. It's the fact that you've lost 6 in a row. You've lost 8 of 9. And you have Jack Flaherty and Miles Michaelis, who probably won't be back till, August-ish? Mm-hmm. Let's just say that.
It's going to be a while.
We don't know exactly. But what do you do with this team? What do you do? And if you make moves, will it matter if you don't have Miles Michaelis and Jack Flaherty for the next 50 games or so? What do you think?
I don't. They need multiple moves, and at this point, unless they start helping themselves out, those moves are a waste of time. To even that sounds terrible because hey, there's people paying for tickets and things like that, but they need a couple starters, they need a couple relievers, they need another bat or two. That's like 5 or 6 things, right? You realistically, you can't go find 5 or 6 additions in a baseball season this quickly. You got to start somewhere. It's got to, start tonight within itself where Adam Wainwright's on the mound. And we say it time and time again, Adam, you got to go out and be the leader again. And it's got to start tonight. The kid throwing, what's his name?
John Mejia?
Yeah, Mejia. I think he's only
John Carlos Mejia.
He hasn't started enough that he should make a difference. This team needs to just go out, stop the streak, get a win tonight, and that's how you just got to start, one step at a time to build yourself back up. You're still, a game, 2 games over 500 as it is right now?
1 now.
You're not the Pirates, you're not the Rangers, but you got to start tonight, man. Yep. And as far as Carlos goes, you got one more start. And if it's another one of these, like you saw the last 2, I'm picking up the phone. I'm going, who wants him? Come get him. We'll take a few minor leaguers for him because if he's been here long enough and he's a veteran, he's got to be part of the solution. Right now, he's not. He's part of a problem. They're just going to have to just move it. I mean, you just can't have that continue to be a problem.
Did he just have a blow-up inning? Was he doing all right for a bit there, and then all of a sudden it just blew up on him? He had 5 hit runs and 1.
It blew up against the Dodgers last week.
Okay.
He threw 2/3 of an inning. Couldn't even pitch 1 full inning, and gave up 10 runs?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then last night, he gave up 5 more before, 2 innings were up, and you're like,
he's just not. You've seen his eyes. He's just not. Sometimes you just know.
Well, he is that guy that when he's off, he looks not focused. But he's a veteran. He shouldn't be that guy, right? Those are rookies that make those situations happen, not a veteran. So, plus they're not going to re-sign him. He's got a contract.
He's got the option.
Yeah, there's an option where there's, 16 is the option. They're not picking that up. So if he continues to be a problem, you got to move it.
But what do you do now? Where do you look now? Who's available now? Who are we waiting on? Are we waiting on injuries? Is there anyone
Cardinals
else there?
Will tell you they're waiting on injuries.
I mean, but what are we doing here? And what can they do?
Well, that's the big question is, because here we are at the 60-ish game mark, where normally deals get done closer to trade deadline, and John Mozeliak likes to wait and see because usually you take that first 100, 110 games before the trade deadline. Trade deadline, you can help yourself out the last couple months. You see, all right, I have a good look at my team. 100, 110 games in. What do I need? What are our pluses, minuses, deficiencies? Where can we clean this up? Well, because of just a ravaging of injuries and underperformance by bullpen guys, I mean, you need a lot. And here we are. A lot of teams, they want to wait and see if they're still in it, right? They want to wait 100, 110 games to see where they're at. Now, a team like the Nationals, you're in last place. You got Max Scherzer. But you never know with all the wild cards and all that. Don't you as a team, because you also built your team to try to get to the playoffs. Don't you want to give your squad that extra month and a half to see maybe we can go on a run. Maybe we can go on a run. Right now, there's probably a lot of teams that still want to see where they'll be over the next 45 days.
Man.
Was it the Nationals at right around this time of the year they won the series? They were well out of the race, right?
Right.
If I remember correctly.
To the point, you're right, to the point where if the Nationals would have been as bad last year in the shortened season, they don't even get in. I mean, because that's how bad the Nationals were to start the year. That first third of the year, they had injuries, Max Scherzer, I believe Trey Turner, and then they just turned it on the last 100 games, and they win the World Series.
Eric in Central Weston chimes in and goes, Jim, at this point, though, what's the trade value for Carlos? A case of Bud Light? Maybe not.
Maybe not that, but
Bud Light lemon or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, he brings up a great point. There is not a lot of value with him now as opposed to, 3 weeks ago when he was pitching well. The issue there is, though, if he's part of this continuing problem, you can't continue to let it fester. You just got to move on and get something else for him, whatever it is. And again, if it's sending him somewhere who thinks they can, because somebody always thinks they can fix somebody. There's always I can get something out of him, bring him over here. Even if it's just a young arm or young guy at AA, you got to move him. Because without 5 additions, you're not going to win anyway. So you might as well get some value because he's not coming back.
And Carlos Martinez, he's about to be 30. So he's not young, but he's also not that old. And I also think we're getting to a point with him, and I know it's cliche, but sometimes a change of scenery, it just helps. It can help the player where if you move on, if it's a new pitching coach, if it's a new setting, this is a guy who's only pitched and came up with the St. Louis Cardinals. Sometimes it takes getting, and I'm not saying he's going to get traded, but if his option's not picked up, and he has to go to a new team, sometimes you need that kick in the pants to basically change things. And also, sometimes you just go somewhere else and you figure it out for whatever reason. Maybe it's a team that's not as good. Maybe it's a team where your role is set in stone, right? I mean, Carlos Martinez has been an all-star for the Cardinals, but that's 2015, 2017. And at this point, Jim, you talk about potentially trading him, but don't you still need him? That's the thing. Don't get me wrong. I understand what he's going out there. He's not giving you a chance to win the last couple starts, especially. Now, the ERA was really blown up because his previous start was one of the worst in the history of baseball. So that's going to destroy your ERA. He was giving you competitive outings for a while there. But right now, who would you replace him with? If you don't bring somebody in from another organization, I mean, who would you go to?
At this point, Woodruff gets a chance.
There you go. I can see that.
He gets a chance. Again, I don't say he fixes the problem, but he gets an opportunity because you can't keep throwing a guy out there who goes, a couple innings. He's a veteran guy. He has to know and be a part of the solution where you go, well, we're going to get at least
30 years. He's 30 years old.
Right. He's not a kid.
He's 30.
Right. You got to be part of the solution.
I know. You have to trend in the right direction. By the way, flip phone Stan tried to call in, and he couldn't do it.
Here, I got him now.
You there, homeboy?
Stanner.
Yes, I am. What's up,
What's up, buddy?
What up?
I just had a comment about the Cardinals.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, buddy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, hey, listen, guys. Hey, first of all, I guess I wanted you to define your expectations of Cardinal fans. You wanted people to call in and say, what do you want? But I think we've it's been that way for a long time here in St. Louis. I mean, we had that run in the 2000s. Cardinals had the run in the 2000s, obviously making a few World Series and winning a couple. Haven't been to one since 2013. Haven't won one since 2011. And I think it the expectation levels here in St. Louis, I don't know if it's really to win. It's more to let's get in the playoffs and then anything can happen. I hear that every year. Just get in the playoffs because the MLB has expanded their playoffs now where 10 teams make it. A third of the league gets into the playoffs now. It used to be much more difficult just to get there, but now that they get there, let's face reality here with the Cardinals. Does anybody really think over the last 4 or 5 years this team had any actual real chance to actually win a World Series? When you look at teams like the Dodgers, like the Astros, like the Nationals, that go out, and now this year San Diego, they go out, they spend big money on free agents, on young free agents that have a that have a lot of promising upcoming potential. The Cardinals, we get a guy named Jack Flaherty. That was wonderful. Came out of nowhere. Nobody really expected the guy to do what he did. Now he's been injured the last couple of years. But so really, what are the expectations? Or is it just to make the playoffs? Because this team's probably good enough to squeak in a terrible division with a wild card, or maybe even win the division. But let's just face facts. They're not even coming close to winning a World Series with the team they have assembled. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Last fact even pumped you up, man. Flip phone stands. I own it.
Right, so continue, folks, to call in 855-282-8255. He brings up, Stan does, a great point, and I agree with him. In my opinion, you have to go back to the 2015 year. That was a 100-win team. Now, I know they lose to the Cubs in the first round of the playoffs, but that was the last team that, don't you think it's fair to say, was an elite team. If you win 100 games, you're really, really good.
Yeah.
I know it didn't work out in the playoffs, but the years previous to that, if you start with 11, you did have elite baseball teams that they're knocking on the door to go to the World Series every year. They're in the NLCS, 11, 12, 13 in the World Series, 14 NLCS. They're losing to the Giants those couple years. But those teams were World Series contenders. And I think what Stan said is accurate. I don't think anybody realistically can say the Cardinals from, let's say, 16 on, did we ever think they were a legit World Series contender? I would say no.
No, I'd agree with that.
Now, what I will say is sometimes now's not the time to say, we're going to give the Cardinals credit because everything's looking really bad. But they are really good every year. When I say they're good, they're knocking on the door to get in the postseason every year. They get in about 6 or 7 times out of every 10 years. Even when they're out, they're almost always above 500, and they're in it till the end. They don't do rebuilds, which a lot of franchises, you do a rebuild, you stink for 4 or 5 years. Nobody wants to go to the games. That's not the case with the Cardinals. So they do business a little different, where they're always good. They say, we'll get in the playoffs, we'll see what happens. But what Stan pointed out is true. The Cardinals were really good, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They got in, they did damage, they won a World Series, they got to a World Series, they were getting to the Final Four in the NLCS. Now, a couple years ago, they get to the NLCS. That was kind of odd. You beat a Braves team, You got swept by the Nationals. But overall, the last 5 years, whenever you look at the Cardinals, whether it's betting odds, whether it's power rankings, they're always around 10th, which is fine. But the last 5 years, they haven't been in that top 5. Hey, this team could really win a World Series.
They're complacent, I feel like. And even like doing the show, starting a show with TJ and all those guys, like, I don't remember being too positive. I sometimes would fall asleep once in a while, but I never remember them being so positive about the team in the last 5 years with anything. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Like the other day, they did get past the Braves. It was kind of a fluky year, and then they get spanked, and you're like, okay, and you kind of forget about it. But they've been stagnant. Certainly have been stagnant. They haven't made that next jump in a long time.
And they have made some big moves, though. I mean, you've traded for Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt in the last 2, 3, 4 years. They've made some big moves, but still with that, you haven't looked at this team and said, man, this is a team where when they face the Dodgers, when they face the Padres right now, they have a really good chance to win these series. And it's not just in the playoffs last year against the Padres. And they took care of business against the Braves a couple years ago. But look at the team this year. I was looking back at the schedule yesterday. The last series they had that I would call impressive, and I say that because they actually won a series versus a good team. It was about a month ago versus the Brewers. Now, they took 3 of 4 from the Diamondbacks, but the Diamondbacks are really bad.
They're bad.
Even in those games, the Diamondbacks gave them hell of a game several times. And they beat the Pirates in a little 2-game turbo series, but the Pirates are the Pirates. I mean, the Pirates don't know how to step on first base, either defensively or when they're running around the bases. Brian Hayes.
I had that down in my notes.
I have on my fantasy team and cost me a home run. He's actually a fantastic player, by the way. But still, the Pirates are the Pirates. So the last time the Cardinals played a series against a good team and beat them, it was about a month ago versus the Brewers.
Yep, they struggled. Definitely. Want to talk to Keith?
Who
yes,
we got
sir.
on,
Keith on the phone line.
What's up? I'm going to call you Big
What
Wall
you got?
anyway.
Keith.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
What up?
Hey, I went to the game last night, and it's bad. It's really hard to watch. It's hard to spend your money down there and watch this garbage. But, I think it's time that this team had an overhaul. And you're not going to overhaul the whole team, but it starts at the top. We need a change at the general manager position. The evaluation of talent for several years now is really something's not right. I mean, Rosarina, now Patrick Wisdom, Garcia. I wasn't Tatis in our system. I mean, something is not right about the evaluation of talent, especially young talent in this organization. And I just think we need to kind of start over. You're not going to start over with a bunch of new players, but you got to start at the top where a decision maker can really evaluate what we have and what's going forward. I just don't trust the top leadership in this organization any longer. I think it's there's something's not right.
Keith, man,
thanks for the call.
Hey, you know what? I'll tell you this right now. I don't trust anybody that puts a sweater over their shoulders and ties it up and wears shorts. I'm just sorry, I don't. I'm just joking, man. Kind of.
So, Keith, though, now, Tatis Jr., it was the fact that the Cardinals didn't sign him back in the day when, obviously his father played for the Cardinals, so he was never in the organization. But he brings up some other guys, which, look, this offseason, the first time Mo talked to the media, he started with the Randy Arozarena. He started with that in the conversation because he knew that was going to be a huge topic. And he said, look, we need to know our guys better than everybody else. And here's what I've said about the Cardinals and Mo since I've been here. This is now the 14th season. The Cardinals have always been really, really good at developing, drafting, pitching. They're always good. Now, this year, look, I know some guys have underperformed. There's been a ton of injuries, but I'm talking about over the course of, look at the DeWitts since they've been owning the team, since Mozeliak has been here. I don't usually worry about them with pitching. With position players, it's a different story. Now, you got a young stud in Dylan Carlson, and that's fantastic. We all know what happened with Oscar Taveras. That was a tragedy. Yeah. He could be right now the dude that's hitting 40 bombs, honestly. That's just one of those awful things.
Car accident? Was that car accident?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my issue, though, position player-wise, Jeff Albert's been here now 3 years. Okay? Jeff Albert is and should be on the hot seat for many reasons. Do you think since he's come here, have you seen the Cardinals from an offensive standpoint really improve? And then also, and I'm not blaming all of these things on Jeff Albert, because some of these guys, Patrick Wisdom, a couple years back, but if it's Randy Arozarena, right, and Adolis Garcia, I know he goes to the Rangers, and it gets back to my point about Carlos Martinez. I'm not gonna rip on the Cardinals every time somebody leaves, because sometimes these dudes, they get woken up when they get released or DFA, they go somewhere else. Whether it's a ballpark that's better, it's a hitting coach that they just get in sync
more
with.
Comfortable environment.
Whatever it is.
Yep.
So every single time I can't be like, oh, the Cardinals. But if you have 3 or 4 instances, if it's Luke Voigt, if it's Randy Arozarena, and Patrick Wisdom has been fantastic for a month. I mean, he's been awesome. I mean, we're talking player of the month. We'll see if he can continue that. I hope he does. He's a great dude. But when you start to bring up some of these names, Adolis Garcia, I mean, you are talking about now 3, 4, 5 guys who have gone to other places and have been pretty dang good.
Jimmy, if Dougie did this, and you're getting rid of cats left and right, and they're dominating, and you're just stagnant. Maybe you squeak in here and there, maybe you make a little thing, but you're stagnant, and you're getting rid of guys, and they're performing, we'd lose our mind.
This is the reverse, like if we were Buffalo.
I mean, come on.
How the heck did we give up Ryan O'Reilly? And he helped them win. It's the reverse side. Now, the one thing about Wisdom, and I'm there with you, I got to let this thing play. He's having an unbelievable ride.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he was in Texas, and Texas couldn't fix him.
Exactly.
Now, Texas fixed Adolis Garcia, and that's kind of to your point. Sometimes it's at the right spot, the right time, things work. But it gets frustrating. Heck yeah, I get it. There are guys, but they seem to have fixed Tyler O'Neill. You got to give him credit for that.
Or maybe he fixed himself.
Well, that could be too.
I mean,
100%.
I'm not on the Jeff Albert has fixed a lot here program. Believe me, there's been a lot of what the heck is going on here. There's too much of that. It should be better. I agree with that 100%.
And I will give guys credit. Tyler O'Neill, by the way, I always give the player credit first, by the way. So Tyler O'Neill,
that's a good
number
100%.
one. But also, yes, whatever the Cardinals, Jeff Albert, whatever they've done to help unlock Tyler O'Neill this year, absolutely give them credit. Patrick Wisdom, like you said, so go back 2018. He plays 32 games here, bats 260, on base 362, slugs 520. That's actually pretty good for a small sample size. But Texas and last year with Chicago, we're talking he played 11 games total, hit 154 with Texas, and batted 0, just 0 for 2 with the Cubs. But he's found something this year in his age 29 season. So again, I'm not going to crush the Cardinals for specifically Patrick Wisdom, whatever he did, whether it's he found a hitting coach, he got his eyes checked, he went launch angle, whatever it was.
How about he just changed his diet up in the summer or the winter?
Whatever he did. I'm not going to crush the Cardinals specifically, but it's more of the fact that it's 4 or 5 guys now that you can point to. And also with Jeff Albert, remember, let's be real about this. Part of the reason you brought over Jeff Albert was he was from the Houston system, right? That was part of it.
Yep.
He was part of the Houston system. What have we learned about the Houston system the last couple of years?
They hit trash cans?
Trash cans. And again,
they're pretty good
Altuve's a nerd.
Now, if he comes here and he revolutionizes the Cardinals offense, that's a different story. But guess what? That hasn't happened. And I've brought up the Dodgers a million times. But look at the Dodgers. Not only are they this big market team that can sign Trevor Bauer, they can trade and then sign for Mookie Betts. Don't get me wrong. I understand they're in a different stratosphere in terms of their money and their ability to spend. Yep. But also, look at position players that have been just guys elsewhere that have gone to Dodgers in the last 2, 3, 4 years and have found something, become all-star type players. Chris Taylor, who destroyed the Cardinals. Chris Taylor is a great example of that. Max Muncy was not a good player. He goes to the Dodgers and is a freaking all-star hitting 35 home runs. Kike Hernandez is another guy. You see some cats that are also ran types. Whatever they're doing, whether it's we're just going to focus on launch angle and hitting for power and taking your A swing, the Dodgers find some of these guys that struggle in other organizations and they polish them. The Cardinals, have the Cardinals done that?
Is it always that way with, and maybe I'm going off track with this, but is it always when a baseball player gets better, it's not necessarily on them, it's like what organization they're in? Because it
can vary, man. It really does.
Because like in baseball though, like it's kind of individual for the most part. Like if you're hitting, like it's you. So if a good player goes to a different team, I always don't want to bring hockey in, but like you can play with 2 wingers that are unreal, and you're just like in a slot, like I'm going to score that. But in baseball, it's like, so what are the Dodgers doing differently? Is their setup nicer? Are they explaining things better? Is it just more loosey-goosey where you could just kind of have freelance in your mind, and so you focus better? I don't know, man. And if they get better, is it always because of the hitting coach or the pitching coach, or is it because they're busting ass in the offseason?
The pitching coach has been there 3 years now. Ryan Van Scoyoc, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but he's been there. He's been given a lot of credit for the guys that have come up through the system. The Bellingers. Lux isn't figured it out yet, but he was crushing the ball down in the minors. And, he's the guy apparently that fixed him with some of whatever his teaching, methods are. He's getting a lot of credit for taking care of a lot of problems there. And you point out, it's like every guy that they bring in, I mean, it's like all of a sudden they're superstars. The Turners, the Muncies, these are guys anybody could have had, Taylor, and they're lighting it up. There's got to be something to it if there's more than one or 2 guys.
And to be fair, I forgot Justin Turner, by the way. But some of those guys you mentioned, now, the Gavin Luxes of the world, Cody Bellinger, Will Smith, the catcher, these are stud, high draft pick types.
And they came through their system.
Correct.
Now.
That's the point, though.
Yeah.
They're coming through the system, and these first-round picks or guys that are high picks are coming to fruition and blossoming with the Dodgers. And with the Cardinals, again, I give them all the credit in the world for developing pitching year in, year out for the last, whatever it is, 15, 20 years. They always seem to do that. But I feel like every offseason, we're talking about the big trade, which they've pulled off, by the way. To get the offense, they're going to trade for the Paul Goldschmidts. They're going to trade for Nolan Arenado. And we all love what Dylan Carlson's doing, Tyler O'Neill. But if you look at a bunch of these guys, Harrison Bader, Has Harrison Bader achieved offensively what we thought? Paul DeJong, I know he's hurt now. He had the 30-homer season. Has he developed offensively to his potential? I think these are all fair questions. When you go around the diamond, you look at some of the position players, and you say, are these guys becoming the best offensive players they can be here with the Cardinals?
Let me Splashback chimes in and goes, watching the Indians bat, Native Americans, I should say, they swing at the ball where it's pitched. The Cardinals have like one swing. Hopefully the ball is there. They seem doomed up instead of instinctual. Domed up instead of instinctual.
So
I could read.
Thinking, not reacting.
I could read, okay? Ninth grade education. Eureka. Jeez Louise. Sorry, Splashback. My bad on that. Damn.
All that said.
Is he making sense on that?
Yeah, and
that's hard to
the other part
pinpoint.
Is, remember, the Indians are not a good offense.
Aren't a great offense either.
We were joking with them about all these no-hitters were against the Mariners and the Indians. Rangers.
They're Americans.
Yeah.
So the Indians are not a great offensive team. And I'm not just reacting to last night because Shane Bieber is a stud. We all figured you're probably going to lose that game. Now, you don't want to lose it 10-1. An extra base hit would be nice. Tonight's the game. Now, look, Adam Wainwright is a veteran.
Yep.
He's a guy, he knows his job. Tonight, it's to be a stopper. It's to go out there and grind out a win any way you can. You are facing this guy, Giancarlo Mejia, who he hasn't thrown over 3 innings in an outing this year, but he's also not given up an earned run. So it's a very small sample size. In 8 innings, he has 9 Ks, and he hasn't allowed an earned run. But this is one of those bullpen start types where, I mean, maybe he gives you 4, but he hasn't gone past 3 innings all year. So this does feel like a guy where even if he's good for 3-4 innings, you should be able to get to this bullpen.
They have to get to the bullpen tonight.
And then what, though?
It's, 6 straight losses now? This is a game you just got to win, period. You just got, Splashback was talking about they didn't look good last night. Well, they weren't. But I think the bigger problem is you just had 4 games against the Reds, and you didn't win a game against the second worst pitching staff next to yours, and you couldn't score enough runs. It's like, come on.
And by the way, I don't want to pass
should be
the
lighting
buck.
that up.
Was it Keith or Stan who basically said you need to change with Mozeliak? I wasn't trying to pass the buck there, but I think first and foremost, Albert, the seat is hotter. The seat is certainly hotter with Jeff Albert. Jeff Albert doesn't have equity with the St. Louis Cardinals. Now look, it's been 2-3 years, and the offenses haven't been great. Like Mo or not, Mo has a ton of equity with the St. Louis Cardinals, with the DeWitt. Also remember, the Cardinals never have a losing season, right? We sometimes we got to step back, even in the worst years. Right now, we're acting like this team is in last place. They're 1 game over. And I understand in baseball heaven USA, St. Louis, Missouri, the expectations should be higher. Sometimes, though, we have to calm down after the game, after we get our bucket hat on, after we put down our Bud Light and Budweiser, and also say, you know what? The Cardinals have a winning record every single year. They never rebuild. They're almost always in it. However, the last 5 years, which gets us back to our point with Stan, the last 5 years have been different because you're just barely kind of a playoff contender, but you've never really been a World Series contender, whereas give them all the credit in the world. Give the St. Louis Cardinals all the credit in the world from 11 to 15. They were a juggernaut, knocking on the door every single year with a legit chance to win the World Series. The last 5 years, that has absolutely not been the case, and I don't know how you could argue that.
And that's why people are complaining.
Yes.
And you could tie it all you want. Well, we did this. No, but they just haven't been the same. Not even close. And it's just like when the Blues lost to Colorado. Remember that when Vladdy got hurt? And it's just like, you need to do something. Like, they're on them. Like, that's unacceptable. You've been having great teams that could have won. They just didn't happen. But, yeah, no, I don't mind it. I don't mind the heat the fans are putting on. I don't. A lot of times they're maybe a little too much with different things. But in this situation, I don't mind it.
If you're paying the price to go down, heck yeah, they deserve it.
Exactly.
What do you think of these Redbirds? Bob, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing there, Charlie?
Oh, what's up, Bobby?
What up?
Yeah, I'm doing. Anyway, I call by different alias names, but I'll use Bob today. Is that okay?
Sure. I knew your voice. What do you usually call?
Yeah.
What's the name you usually use?
Well, I call the old Charlie Tuna Show there. I've been listening to him for 40 years. Don't tell him I said that, but he's been around longer than you were even born, I think.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
39.
like 130.
But hold on a second.
Yeah, maybe that's going on. Hey, let me ask you guys a question. How do you determine how do you take calls and you just keep on not rambling, but you just keep on talking, which is interesting. But how do you decide when to take calls? And I want to follow up with something else real quick about the Blues and Cardinals.
Okay, well, first of all,
call in and we answer it.
And look, by the way, so people know, we'll take calls every single day.
Yeah, we don't.
Sometimes
care.
we have a guest. Sometimes you got takes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a lot going on in the sports world.
Sometimes
I don't like to.
Bob.
There you go. I don't like to lie to our listeners. If there's days where there's not a lot going on, we can take calls all day long.
Yeah.
But Bob, if that's your name, actually, I do think a day like today. I think a day like today, people want to get their frustrations out about the Cardinals.
Okay. Right. Hey, but I just want to, guys, listen, when Doug Armstrong comes out, I'm not saying he blames her, but he just admits what's wrong and he tries to fix it. Mosaic says, the way he talks, it just like lags on and on. He never gets to the answer. I just like the way Doug Armstrong compared to the Blues. He's just up front. We need better play from this guys and that guy. You never hear it from Schiltz. It's always like, they did their best and we're going to back them up to the hilt. I mean, that's good enough, but how far does it go when these guys are not good players and you just say they're not good? And just move on I just don't understand it, man.
I agree with him on everything he just said.
Bob, please call in every day.
Seriously, I agree with everything you said.
Well,
it's true, though.
Great call, Rackham. Bob with a great call. Now, he went from Mo to Schilt. He compared him to Army, and I want your take, Cam. But first of all, I think Mo runs this team like a business, like a finance guy. I feel like Mo is usually pretty realistic. Now, Schilt, as I said, whatever it was yesterday, the day before, I do think, especially when things are going poorly, look, I don't want you to be an a-hole. I don't want you to be just overly negative. I do like the positivity. But sometimes when it looks really bad, you can just say that. These are pros.
Charlie,
they're making $500,000 at least, if not $20 million, $30 million a year. You can say we need to execute. We need to be better.
Oh, you can call a guy out.
Right. You don't have to have little league attaboy type stuff when you're in a 6-game losing streak.
Thank you.
That's
little
all I'm
league.
saying.
It's little league stuff. It's what you do with the AAA kid, naming AAA kids, like young kids playing, and you're like, well, you're good, everything's good. There's different. There's different when you're, Andy and I talk about this all the time. Like when you get to a certain age, now you can be like, you put your foot down a little bit. But you're right, he is right. Now Mo could be a different story. Army's a different breed, dude. He's an old school Canadian boy. His daddy was a hardcore liney.
Hockey's different than baseball.
Like it's different.
It is.
You're like, no, he's not playing well. No, he specifically isn't doing this. No, he's playing soft. But it's just different in baseball because it's like every day. I don't know, but there's a difference. Go ahead.
And by the way, and I'm criticizing Mike Schilt, just especially the last 2-3 days, the comments Sunday. Yep. But again, with all these guys, and you can criticize whatever Mike Schilt is or isn't doing on the field. But if you look at the big picture, and he has now been the manager, 3.5 years, whatever it's been. I mean, look at a couple weeks ago, this dude went to war for Gio Gallegos and called out all of Major League Baseball for the hat thing. Remember that? I mean, Mike Schilt defended his dude